Colts are picking here at 4. I'm Chris Ballard. And
now we get interesting. Very interesting pick there, Mr. Wilson.
Things are getting interesting here. Josh, I want your initial reaction to the Colts at 4, taking a quarterback named Will Levis out of Kentucky.
Yeah, so your timing is very good because they had a private workout with Levis this morning. They continue to do their due diligence. They've met with all the top quarterbacks in this draft class, so that's not any indication as to where they may be leaning. But recent comments from Jim Irsay lead me to believe that they are more likely to take one of these rookie quarterbacks as opposed to broach the idea of possibly trading for Lamar Jackson. So sitting here, having the opportunity to take the third quarterback in this draft class, we can split hairs and talk about potential, but I think Levis still has a lot of untapped potential. So if Indianapolis is comfortable with what they've seen, they've obviously sat down, they've had interviews with these guys. If they like what they've heard, go with the guy that you have a conviction about. And if it's Levis, then I'm all for it.
So based on our 4-school pro day tour, Rick, and we saw Josh at 2 of those schools, this would be sort of a draft day surprise, right?
Yeah, well, Josh got hit by a ball that went wide right, out of bounds.
That was me.
Hey, Ryan was there too. I don't know what you heard, but Ryan was standing there too.
I still, by the way, my chest still hurts from just getting glanced by a college wide receiver. That was not fun for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm surprised you're still doing this podcast.
You too. I'll be honest with you.
That would require shoulder surgery, and for you, that'd be a week later. You'd be out there playing instead of a 6-month rehab.
Thank you.
I do have a video of that rep too, so we can always put that out here in a little bit. You see Ryan's shoes kind of scrambling out of the way, so you get a little.
Do you have a video of it, Josh?
I do. I was taking a video when it happened.
Oh, send that to me. I didn't know that. I was looking for it because it was the athleticism will take your breath away there, Rick. But this is a draft day surprise. No, what are you laughing at? Jeez.
The pro day, the only pro day you ever attended at Syracuse.
Those are the 2 things that get you going. Are you surprised that the Colts could take Will Levis over Anthony Richardson?
I'm not surprised whatever happens in this draft. I wouldn't do it. I'm not personally a big fan of Will Levis, but I've been wrong. Everybody's been wrong. So if they have a conviction, take him. If you'll know in 3 years whether he was a bust or he was a great pick.
All right. Josh, you're up at 5 here. It is the Seattle Seahawks. Who they taking?
I have them taking Texas Tech edge rusher Tyree Wilson. Obviously, the other consideration here would be, do I take a quarterback? Do I possibly take Jalen Carter here, the defensive tackle out of Georgia? I don't personally know how they feel about either prospect. What I do know is that this is a franchise that has typically favored the prospects with traits, guys like Tyree Wilson. So I thought he kind of fit into the prototype that they've typically gone for, even though we're not accustomed to them picking this early in the first round. So that's why I went with Wilson to upgrade their pass rush.
So if you're making this pick, Rick, and you have Tyree Wilson, you have Jalen Carter and Anthony Richardson on the board for the Seahawks, who are you taking?
Yeah, I mean, Tyree Wilson's the safest and probably going to make the biggest impact, although he's going to take some time to develop. Then the only reason they're picking this high is because of the gift that Denver gave them last year. So you should make sure that you take advantage of it. I think he has tremendous upside, and he's a great kid. He's still coming off that foot. I don't believe he ran yet. I didn't have any results from his pro day. So unless he's going to run before the draft or do something before the draft. But this is a safe pick on a very good football player that has a high ceiling.
Yeah, the official report was did not test because of foot at the pro day. What do you got, Josh?
One thing I was going to ask Rick, we've heard all the reports that some teams have removed Jalen Carter from their board. I don't know if I personally buy him. But my question is there a point in the draft process where there's a meeting where you all sit down and you talk about character concerns and injury concerns and you remove those players all at once? Or is it kind of throughout the process when something pops up, you just kind of put that on the board?
No, you keep going through the meetings. I always would make a note of a guy that was going to come off the board after you get through your meetings, kind of get your board set. You bring your ownership in then, and you have as I called, a big boy discussion, an adult discussion on whether this guy is going to stay on the board or not. You lay out everything in the room to all the scouts, the coaches that are involved, the ownership, everybody involved, and then you have a discussion, and then you decide as an organization whether you want him on your board or not.
That's a good question, Josh. You're pretty good at this. All right, Rick, you're up. Detroit Lions are picking 6.
Okay, this one wanted to throw a little wrench in here because it's been boring taking a corner or a pass rusher every freaking time we do this. So I went with Detroit Lions taking Anthony Richardson.
Ooh-wee.
Now I know that there's a slim possibility or no possibility at all, and Slim probably left town, but you never know on draft day. And so I took Anthony Richardson here. One, let him train a year or two behind Jared Goff. Two, you got an offensive coordinator that's going to be a head coach very soon. It's excellent. Turned around Jared Goff's career and have him playing at a high level. I know they've done a lot of work on Anthony Richardson. Do they believe he can be the guy once Goff is gone? Because even Dan Campbell said in a press conference that he's not going to be there the next 10 years. So when you have an opportunity, because I don't believe they'll ever pick this high again, and this was a la LA Raiders gift to them, do you take an opportunity to take a potential franchise quarterback and have the luxury of having him sit for a year or two before he's ready to go, which he does need to do. And then you may have a superstar on your hand.
So they have pick 6, and they also have a first-round pick at pick 18, their original first-round pick. And, you know, we talk about this all the time with top 10 picks. Typically, quarterbacks go to bad teams, but if you're the Seahawks who picked at 5 or the Lions who pick at 6, those are 2 great landing spots for young quarterbacks who don't need to play right away. So I like the pick. I don't have any issue with it. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I like the fit. I like a situation where Richardson can come in, kind of sit and learn for a year or two from a veteran like Jared Goff, or a similar situation in Seattle with Geno Smith. I think that's kind of an ideal situation where he comes in without the pressure of being this first-round pick, being asked to save a franchise in his rookie season. So I do like that fit. I think it's good for not only the Lions to get some long-term stability at a reasonable, financial rate, but it's also good for the player to develop in that kind of a situation.
Yep, I'm with you. Number 7, the Raiders are on the board. They have Jimmy Garoppolo. The quarterbacks, top 4 quarterbacks are off the board. They could go edge rusher here if they wanted to, or even cornerback. Their defense hasn't been very good recently. Instead, I had them taking Ohio State left tackle Paris Johnson Jr. Played out left tackle in 2022. 2021, he played right guard, so he has that position flexibility. And we talked about it on yesterday's podcast, me, Rick, Pete Prisco, and Lige Douzable, about the athleticism that he brings to the table. In addition to that versatility, I think he helps this team immediately. He plays from the start, whether it's at tackle or guard. And the whole idea is to protect the quarterback. So you can do that. You got Josh Jacobs coming back on the franchise tag, and then you go forward because you're playing in an incredibly tough division. So that feel like a pretty easy pick to you, Rick, or are you going somewhere else?
No, that's easy.
All right.
Yeah, you better take the best offensive lineman. Maybe not the best offensive lineman, but the safest left tackle, which is a need for them. I do think Broderick Jones has a higher ceiling. I think Skoronski's a better overall player, but can he play guard or left tackle with his short arms? But this is I'm not going to argue with you on this one either.
I'll take it. All right, Josh, you're up. The Falcons are picking at 8. They have Des Ridder. They signed Taylor Heineke. 4 quarterbacks are off the board, and the rest of their team has a ton of questions. What are you doing?
Well, I think the fact that they do have a ton of questions kind of opens up the board for them a little bit. So had a similar thought process here with not knowing how they feel about Jalen Carter possibly staying in the state. So I went with Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback from Oregon, to pair with A.J. Terrell. You get a couple of lockdown guys in the secondary there. That's how I'm going to build this defense moving forward. Have a couple of guys that are going to be able to capitalize on the plays made by Grady Jarrett. They added David Onyemata this offseason. Arnold Ebiketie, hopefully he takes the next step in his career this upcoming year. So you have a couple of ball hawks in the backfield that can really take advantage of some plays.
Rick, a more general question about a team like the Falcons. Let's say we're talking about a team that has the Falcons personnel and have struggled in recent years, and you're sitting there at 8, and you can have the best cornerback, maybe the best offensive tackle, or Jalen Carter. Do the analytics tell you which player gives you the most wins, so to speak, going into the next 4 or 5 years, or is the situation you're just looking to fill the biggest hole?
Yeah, you're trying to fill a biggest hole, but the analytics are going to tell you a lot. They did a great job, and what we were able to do is eventually clone players based off of their intelligence scores, based
Mm,
off of their psychological scores. So his mental makeup plus his combine numbers equate to this. Now you tell me, the analysts say what you see on tape. That's your job, but our job is telling you his makeup is similar to player X, whoever that
gotcha.
may be.
Nice. That's actually I learned something there. Thought I learned everything you had to offer. I just learned something new.
I've just opened up. I didn't open up Pandora's box to you yet. I got to slowly feed you, just like I have to feed Pete, which was horrible yesterday.
All right, Rick, back to you. Bears are picking at number 9. They traded down. They have a lot more picks now, and they have a quarterback, and they've done pretty well in free agency, but they got a lot of things to sort out as they go into the season.
Yeah, this one I think is where the point you cannot, because you're at number 9, and Jalen Carter is the guy that I'm going to take here because he did visit with Chicago. What I read, or is going to visit with Chicago. He is. They qualified because they're in the top 10. So
How'd you feel about that comment that he wasn't going to visit
yeah,
anyone outside the
that
top
was
10?
horrible. I totally disagreed with it because if I was picked number 14 and I wanted to move up into the top 10, I can do that. But if this kid's going to deny me the opportunity to come visit with us, then I would have another major red flag. He's Jalen Carter. There's no question. I think he can be a perennial Pro Bowler if he's right. You're asking yourself in the draft meetings, how much of the resources do we have to devote to just one player when we have 53 others? And is this kid that special that we're going to take all of our resources, life skill resources, everything that goes along with it to make sure we can keep this player on track? So, no question about his ability on the field. It's all the red flags off the field. The 9 pounds overweight, couldn't finish the workout. Sounds like the legal system or all the legal stuff going on is resolved, and that's a team will make a decision whether they feel comfortable with that or not. There's some other things that I've heard on the road that need to be addressed with this player. But if you take this player, you put the proper support around him, then you're going to get one heck of a football player, probably the best player in the draft when
No,
he
I
plays hard.
I
And
agree.
yeah, and then you got a defensive head coach who has said in the past that the 3 technique, the under tackle, is the engine that makes the defense go. And you're getting one that's pretty unique, and those are hard to find.
Yeah, you've said that before as well. You mentioned just hypothetically, like if you're sitting there at 14 and you're thinking about trading up for him, you can't get him in the building for the 30 visit, that, upsets you. But if you're sitting there at 14, he refuses to come visit you and he's still there at 14, you're probably taking him or no?
Not if I don't have all the answers I need. No.
Oh, interesting. Okay, fair enough. All right. So if Jalen Carter didn't go 9, he almost certainly would have gone 10. I'm Howie Roseman picking for the Eagles at 10 with Jalen Carter off the board. I'm going with a pre-draft process riser in Lukas Van Ness. We were at the Ohio State Pro Day, and there's a lot of buzz about Van Ness there, about how good he did at his Pro Day, and there's a chance he goes in the top 10. And, we've talked about this, Josh, in terms of hasn't really flashed on tape consistently. He didn't start, and that's sort of how they do things at Iowa. Are you any farther along in coming around on Lukas Van Ness?
In terms of the tape, no. But in terms of his potential, obviously he checked the box with the athleticism to go along with the power that he did show on tape. So I understand buying into the potential. I also look at the Eagles here at number 10 overall. Hearing that Jalen Carter wasn't going to take any meetings outside of the top 10 kind of leads you to believe that he got some kind of an assurance from either, the Bears or the Eagles that he may, be taken by those teams if he were available at that point. I also can't help but feel that Howie Roseman, who loves a good deal, may be somebody to monitor if a Jalen Carter were to still be available there at number 7 overall to possibly move up with this extra draft capital that he has acquired to get a player like Carter, who you've got Nakobe Dean, you've got Jordan Davis in that defense, you've got a couple of familiar pieces, you have a strong infrastructure with veterans. I kind of wonder if maybe that's a scenario where Roseman moves up the board to get a player like Carter.